Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee. Look, I have this brand new cup. I'm so excited. She's got water, she's healthier.
Yours is pink.
It is, and it says healing spirits here and there. Terry Strauss, one of my friends who's a psychic medium, and she met me yesterday in Mount Vernon to give me this. It was so
Ooh,
sweet.
we have a Mount Vernon, Maine too.
Do you really?
We do. So
Ah,
cheers to you. Clink.
cheers, clink. Good to see you, Tam. Tam is with me, of course, this morning because, believe it or not, it's the end of August and we're now looking ahead at the month of September,
Indeed, we are.
which means we're also looking at fall, which
Fall.
means we're also looking at all of the holidays that come along with fall. And
I love
yikes.
it. Janet, I am coming alive again. The temperatures are dropping and my energy's going.
Woo!
I'm a fall baby and I live for September and October. I just can't wait every year. And I'm so excited that Friday kicks off.
It's my favorite time of the year as well. I'm not even sure why. I'm not a fall baby. I'm a spring baby, spring, almost summer cusp baby.
Yep.
So I don't get it, but I really do love fall. The colors, the trees already have been changing here. So it's already been feeling or looking like fall.
For real?
Oh yeah, the trees start changing here usually in August. And a lot of that's because of the dryness, right? We don't have that winter cold and they it gets cooler at night. So the trees are changing. The
Yeah.
kids go back to school today
Yep.
and that makes it feel like fall. So we're moving in that direction.
Are.
So September, always such a great month because it holds still some of the heat, the warmth from the summer,
Yep.
and has the cooler impact from the impending fall. Yay.
I know. I love it. I'm excited to talk about September and September 1st. I'm going to say it right now, even though you didn't invite me to. We're launching.
I was going to invite you to do that. So go ahead. You
I knew
just
you
pulled it out of my
I
head.
knew it. I'm just going to take over. So we are September 1 through 15 launching the limited run of the coil bound Energy Almanac. So there's a coil here.
Yes.
This is a lay flat book. We're only printing 500 of this kind of book. After that, you have to get a paperback book. So September 1st, you can order that book.
So September 1st through 15th,
Yes.
order the 2024 Spiral Bound
Yes.
Almanac.
Absolutely. We're running the buy the book only, and I'm going to ship it to you media mail for free.
Oh, I'm so excited because otherwise I'd go in and buy it.
No, well, the media mail will be for free, and then the second option is where I'm doing a bundle, which is my Astro-Inklings, a look at the year ahead, which is a $75 cost to watch that workshop. Usually, it's a 2.5 hour workshop, and I'm going to include it with the book if they buy my bundle for $75.
Very cool, and that includes the workshop and the spiral bound
Yes.
2024 almanac.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it because Tam, that means now it's almost time for us to start working on 2025.
No, I know.
You feel like we always live in the year ahead.
We're always doing that. I already have files on my computer for 2025, like for the writers and for the sponsors and for collab. Yeah, yeah. I've already got it started. Here's the cover of the 2024 book, which I
Oh,
don't
that's
have
beautiful.
in print. Yes, yeah, it's really, really beautiful. I'm very
That's
happy with it, and
they're
it's
always beautiful. I love the artwork.
well. Thank you very much. And the interior layout of the 2024 book it's really fun. It's really good. I did a series of birds
Uh-huh.
using
Oh,
using the zodiac name. So there's one for Virgo and there's one for Gemini and one for Capricorn. Every bird has a word written into it, a zodiac word.
bird is the word.
Bird is the word this year.
And perfect because we are in an age of air and birds represent air.
Yes,
So
right. I never
they're
thought of that. That's brilliant.
yeah. See
Yeah.
how psychic you are or how in
God,
tune you are?
subconsciously, I knew that.
Yeah. So we're welcoming all of you to the show this morning. Again, it is Astro-Inklings for September with myself, obviously, and Tam Veilleux of the Energy Almanac.
Yes.
And good morning to Kathleen Mallory. It's so good to see you out there with us. Christine Buckingham, hello. Sharon Little
Hey,
says
hi,
hello,
Sharon.
ladies. Good morning, Joan, Durchi, and Leilani, and Asa. Oh, Asa, wow, great to see you. And Julie is also, she said, something Tam and can't I'm not sure what she's saying. Castro Design family, Astro Design. I think her fingers are off on the keyboard, which is so like me to do that as well. So today we were just talking before the show started
In
about
the
doing
green
it a
room,
little bit
in the
in the
green room.
green room. We were talking about by the way, this is totally off the subject. Yesterday, during a thunderstorm, when I was like, get away from my computer, get away from my phone, I decided to turn on the TV and I ended up watching this documentary about Taylor Swift.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. I think she's a Sagittarian, if I remember
I think
correctly.
so too. Yes.
What a dynamo that young woman is.
Mm,
Whether or not you like her politics, that doesn't matter, but she was really hesitant. She realized she was being a yes person. She
mm.
was doing what made her a good girl, and then suddenly went, "Wait a minute. That's not even me. What am I doing?" And I mean, she's in her 20s and decided that she was going to do it differently. I was like, "Whoa, you go, girl." So, it's possible, right? We can all change our lives at any moment. It's a choice. It's a choice. Anyway, back to what we were going to do this morning is we're going to look, of course, at September. It doesn't have the same kind of punch that August had or that even July and June had. It is maybe like a breather we could kind of consider before we get into October. In fact, I had this great word yesterday. September can be eclipse anticipation.
Ah,
Right, and the eclipse anticipation because obviously October, we have the 2 solar eclipse and, lunar eclipses coming across the Aries and Libra axis,
mhm.
and now this is a great time this month then to plan and to ground and to get everything put together that you wanna take on for the next month.
Can you see that?
I
Practical
can.
planning and reviews.
See how in tune you were back then,
Yep. These retrogrades, huh?
right? But it is always, the eclipses are game changers. Sometimes they are things that changing that we can't control, right? It's just out of our hands.
It's gonna
And
happen.
yeah, it's going to happen or it's happened and or happening and we're kind of just having to go with that flow.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that we can't plan on where those eclipses will be in our own charts
Mhm.
and begin the process of organizing our lives. And guess what? It's Virgo season.
It totally is Virgo season.
Perfect time
Yeah.
for this kind of work. So we have some of that going on. And then I also want to talk about today when I just happened to reread some of the stuff that I wrote for the almanac for the month of September. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed with what I wrote. I never reread what I write.
I get that. I'm kind of the same way, except for once a week, you know?
Yeah, or when I was working on it,
Yeah.
right? I was probably editing it or proofing it, but I never go back and really reread what I wrote. And when I was rereading what I wrote for September, I was like, "Whoo,
Yeah.
we need to share some of this of the gift and the shadows in the weeks of the month." I think that will be a good use of our time.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant too. I love it. Are we gonna start with the gift and shadow stuff? Or are we gonna overview the month quickly? How do you wanna do it?
Yeah, let's overview the month quickly because I think that's what most people were here for is to look
Sure.
at that.
Let
And but we may be able to kind of incorporate it week by week,
Oh, yeah,
right?
good
Let's
idea.
do it that
Yes.
way.
In
Yeah.
that case, I'm going to need my glasses.
Well, I switched back to my newer glasses, but they hurt my nose. So I'm really
Oh.
tempted to go back to my favorite glasses. But I'm, trying to see if this impacts my vision in a positive way or not. And I
Mm,
don't seem to think it does. Hmm.
uh,
Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what
okay,
happens. So we start the month of September on Friday.
we do.
We just launch into it. But unlike last month where we launched in with what was it, the full moon on the 1st, we really don't launch into anything big until the 3rd and the 4th,
Yep.
unless you had something the 1st and the
Nope,
2nd that I missed.
nope. I absolutely, for me, I have the fourth. I have Mercury and Mercury retrograde in Virgo, trine Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, so indeed on the 3rd, let's start there because Venus turns direct that day.
Oh,
And, she's been in retrograde since July 22nd, I believe it was. And we have been in a process of reevaluating our relationships, our money, our values, right?
mhm,
Reevaluating
mhm,
the things that are important to us. And this has maybe brought back people into your lives from earlier love interests to, problems that have been in the past so that we could work through them. And now she has reached back to the point she started the retrograde shadow and will begin to move forward again through all the same territory. So, time for closure, perhaps in some ways, time to institute the changes that you were thinking about adopting with your finances or in your relationships.
mhm. Um, I've been thinking about this whole Leo retrograde. Excuse me, Venus retrograde in Leo. Uh, you know what? Kind of weird. Like I haven't been able to pinpoint it for myself at all. Have you noticed it like in your face? I've seen it with other people, like the old relationships and things like that. But I like for myself, I feel like I haven't had the full experience of it. What about you?
For me, it has been an experience as I have 5 or 4 planets in Leo that were in the crosshairs of the of Venus's retrograde
Yeah.
in my second house of finances and economy and earnings and all of that. And what I did find myself doing was because in July I, added a car payment to my um, bills on a monthly basis, and car payments are not cheap these days because of the rising interest rates.
Right.
So I've had to do a little bit of finagling, in my life in terms of how do I fit in this $600 car payment now every month. And that it's been an interesting journey because partly you're looking at, well, what bills can I reduce or let go of? How can I spend money more wisely? And then also, how do you earn more money? So
Mm,
that's been an interesting thing. So not a bad or a good thing in
right.
my life, just kind of a I gotta look at this and focus on this. But
Interesting.
I've heard from lots of people trying to go out and buy homes and things, and I'd be like, no,
Yeah.
wait.
Right.
Um, just the wisdom of maybe really being more conscious about what we spend,
Yeah.
both our money on, our time on, our what we give our love to,
Mm.
right? Who we give our love to, all of that.
Interesting. And as you say that, I will say probably because we're in this astrology world, I did become hyper aware of purchasing. I became
Yeah.
hyper aware, like I'm not going to spend there or invest there right now, unless it was a really wise investment. But I was really careful about the purchasing thing. And I do know some people who bought homes. We'll just do this.
So here's the thing that I think about retrogrades now, because I've kind of adopted a different sort of view, as in it's not an all or none kind of thing. Like, don't
Right.
do anything under the retrograde that relates to that particular thing. But there's sort of this practical, what's practical to do under a retrograde? So,
Mm,
for example, is it practical to go get cosmetic surgery during a retrograde of Venus when you could just wait until maybe afterwards?
mm.
And maybe even understand why is it that I'm getting this cosmetic surgery done in the first place? Am I trying to
Yeah.
please someone else? That kind of thing. So while I'm saying, it's probably not the best idea to have cosmetic surgery, let's say, or buy a home or a big ticket item during the retrograde, if you can go through the process of understanding your motivation
Yep.
and understanding what the pitfalls might be, and then choose from a different perspective, it may turn out okay.
That's really, really excellent advice. I will say I made the really stupid mistake of getting a haircut during Venus retrograde, a major haircut, and it was bad. It's growing out, and I'm okay with it now. I've made peace with it, and I'm laughing about it now. Like, what was I thinking getting a haircut?
I know I read that in your thing yesterday and I was like, "Oh, that is so funny."
Oh,
Right?
I know better. That's the problem. I know better. Like, how did I miss that? But yeah, I mean, look, surgery is like probably not the right thing to do during, yeah,
Yeah. I
during a,
mean, there are just some things that it's go from your come from your wiser self, come
yeah.
from that higher place within, and we all know it,
Yep.
right? The retrograde just slows it down, hopefully enough for us to really take another vantage point, but also so that we can concern ourselves with, well, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right?
That's
What is the motivation? Because that's the thing that we don't normally think about. We just go to the store and we buy the whatever. We don't like our nose, so we go get the cosmetic surgery. We don't like something and we do something else. We don't really think about, well, what is the deeper meaning behind that? The retrogrades give us that option to do that kind of thinking. Now that Venus is going to turn direct, it should become obvious to you why you waited to do something or why you chose to not get into that relationship after all,
Mhm.
or whatever it is that Venus was related to. And remember, Leo is a sign of the heart.
Yes.
It's really all about what we love and our desire and our specific individuality. And if we were looking at doing things because of someone else, or
Mhm.
because we thought it would make other people happy, that is the key to the learning of the whole retrograde cycle of
Yeah.
Venus. Why are we doing what we're doing?
Right.
Right? Because some man said that, you would look better if your nose was smaller.
Mhm.
And that's kind of exaggerated, but
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. So, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And does it serve our highest and best? Does it come from the heart, or are we doing it for some other reason? Now, if you are doing it for some other reason, putting consciousness around it
Mm,
is a good thing, right? Okay, I'm doing this because,
absolutely.
and then you can choose, do I really want to do it because of that?
Yeah,
Right?
in
Because you,
your example, if you're doing it because you're having breathing issues and having your nose adjusted would
yes.
help that, that's a good use of that surgery.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
So, good stuff, right?
very good.
So Venus direct now will go forward from here, but again, like I said, she's going back through the same territory she retrograded in, so we're not quite done.
Mhm.
We won't be done completely with her cycle until I think it's October 8th.
Mm,
So we'll be dealing with it all through the month of September. And then our favorite friend Jupiter turns retrograde the very next day,
yeah, and trines Mercury in
also in retrograde.
also retrograde. So, again, the whole retrograde season is here in September, a really internal, I would say slower kind of month, I would think.
Definitely giving us a breather. I think it's a breather. I want to look at it like, okay, so it's Virgo season because the sun is here,
Right.
right? And also Mercury is retrograde in Virgo.
Retrograde in Virgo.
And then Jupiter is going to retrograde in Taurus, another fellow earth
Earth
sign.
sign.
Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn, earth sign. So
Mhm.
we have this real opportunity to look at all the practicalities in our lives. What
Yes.
makes sense? What doesn't make sense?
Mhm.
What is, well, I shared with you already my aha yesterday from my visit with the doctor about healthy routines and
Yes.
having to establish healthy habits.
Mhm.
So, especially with the full moon right now, super moon, full moon, blue moon, 2 nights,
Mhm.
um, in and across Virgo and Pisces, really understanding how do I reinstate health or
Mm.
healthy routines, right? Am I spending too much time doing a bunch of stuff for other people and not enough time on myself?
Yep.
Am I spending a whole lot of time eating crappy food? Maybe I need to do detoxifying, things like that. So we have this time period where all of this earth energy is causing us to move, and the retrogrades now moving inward
Mhm.
so that we can really evaluate the inner world, like
The inner landscape, the inner earth.
the inner earth. I like that, the inner earth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So September 4th, that trine with Jupiter and Taurus, and then Mercury in Virgo, and of course the Sun in Virgo, looking at money and practical uses of, I would say, money and internal resources, self worth. Lots and lots of self worth stuff is coming up in my clientele.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. You're
You
right.
do? Okay, yeah, I am really working that one hard with a lot of people. So if it's showing up for you, you're watching this and it's showing up for you, you're not alone, but it's time to do your work on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody that's listening, right now we're talking about Virgo. So if you get your own astrology chart, in fact, do I have one? I do because I did it for the moons. So we'll just pretend this is uh, not what it really is. I'm going to show you visually if I can.
There we go.
This is
There.
this is Virgo right there on the left. That's what the symbol looks like, an M with like an arm that comes around and crosses. And then Pisces opposite of that, kind of looking like two backwards parentheses joined by a bar, right? That's what they look like. Can you guys see that good enough, I hope?
Oh yeah, you got it nice and
Yeah. So if this is so in your own personal chart, you want to look for those two symbols because that's going to tell you where the preponderance of energy is taking place, at least for this week, right? This particular week. And for the month, of course, until we get to the 23rd, Sun is in Virgo, Mercury is retrograde in Virgo, and
yep.
will be in Virgo until the end of the month. I don't even think he changes signs this month. It'll be next month before he changes signs. So we still have a lot of focus in those two signs in
Mhm,
our chart.
mhm.
And that can be, we call it the axis of service. So
Yes,
there's that component.
yes.
One side being maybe more healthy, practical, bodily human concerns, while the other side, the spirituality, the divine human concerns, our connection to spirit and to our inner intuition, our inner psychicness, inner sensitivity,
Yeah,
um, emotion,
yeah.
energy.
Emotion.
So, how do we balance those two? Woo,
So let's
big deals.
it is big deals.
But you're right. I forgot about the financial component with Jupiter, of course, in Taurus, the sign that rules banking and the economy and all of that.
Right.
Turning retrograde, does the economy cool off some more?
Oh,
Is
some
there
more. Boo.
the whole time we knew it was coming with
Oh,
Uranus and
absolutely.
Jupiter in the sign of banking and the
Oh,
economy. We knew.
yep,
Yeah, the handwriting, as it were, was on the wall.
yep.
We just didn't know how drastic it might get. Luckily, I don't think it's as drastic as it could have been
Well, well,
yet.
I'm gonna call it drastic enough. Let's
It
see what
is.
happens during the retrograde, right?
Yeah, let's see, because now again, this might be, Jupiter, look at the Taurus part of your chart.
Mhm.
Do I have to highlight Taurus for everybody? I think that's probably a good idea. Let's do it. Of course, it's the obvious one. To me, it's
Yeah,
obvious because
I
it
agree.
so looks like the bull's head,
Looks like
right?
a bull. It's a circle with little horns coming off the top. You got it. Perfect.
There we go. That is Taurus.
That's Taurus. Find
And those
Taurus in your chart.
and those two planets underneath Taurus there are Jupiter on the right and Uranus on the left.
Yes.
So those are the two we're talking about, and they are biggies,
Mhm.
right? They are power players in the whole pantheon. So when Jupiter turns retrograde, what does that mean for us? Right? That's a question that we'll want to be thinking about because you are also participating in the economy,
Mm,
in the banking system, in
absolutely.
how in what I really think about this
What?
is our ability to become less greedy, more thrifty, but I don't mean that from a space of fear,
Mhm.
more conservative, not as a political move, but as a way to become a good steward
Mhm.
of your resources, of the resources of the planet. Good stewardship.
And that's what you're suggesting Jupiter in Taurus could be
And
about?
retrograde could be all about are we being good stewards
Taking
for
a better
ourselves?
look at taking how are we using our money? Are we using it wisely and in a way that's beneficial to the greater
Mhm.
good? Yeah, that's a nice way to
Yeah,
look at it for sure.
yeah,
I
and then
Go ahead, sorry.
and also with the sun across the Virgo, Pisces axis, then your own personal resources are what your gifts and your talents are that you share with the world. Are you
Sure.
using them in a
Mhm.
way that is helpful, to the planet, but also serves yourself in being able to do what you love or make money,
And
whatever
to
your
earn
interest
from
is.
doing what you love. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. That's really interesting. I know that I'm marking my calendar for that day, like to sit, to have time for a good sit and a good think. Uh,
Yes,
looking
exactly
at
right.
money, looking at economy, looking at earning, looking at self-worth, like taking the time to do that. You better have a fresh notebook for September, everyone.
I
Because
think so too. You're right, because it's a very much internal, introverted sort of energy that we have for this month that's really focused inward.
yep,
A lot of planets are in that retrograde space.
yep, many.
And, Jupiter being the last of the biggies
Yep.
that's gone into retrograde. So now we have all of the outer planets in retrograde
Mhm.
and two of the inner ones in retrograde, at least for the beginning. Um, and
It's
how do we want to move through all this? Not to mention Chiron is also in retrograde.
oh, I didn't know that one. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Only because I track Chiron as well. So he's retrograde. Eris is retrograde.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
Pallas is fine. Let's see, where's Ceres? Where did you go, Mama? Ceres is she's not retrograde. She's direct. So at least two of the goddesses are still going forward, moving their agendas forward.
Nice.
Anyway, so then to complete that week, I also highlighted the 6th and the 8th, Mercury in a conjunction with the
Yes.
sun on the 6th.
Yep, I have that one too.
Now, that is always a symbol of the beginning of a cycle between Mercury and the sun.
Mhm.
So rather than Mercury's cycle beginning when he conjuncts the sun in forward motion, the cycle begins with Mercury in retrograde conjunct the sun.
Right.
So it's kind of typical Mercury retrograde, a little bit upside down, a little bit different. And so we have the beginning of a new cycle of the two of them on Wednesday, the 6th of September. And of course, that happens in Virgo. Well, what do you think our focus will be then with that Mercury cycle?
Here we go again with health and routines and service. That's how I see it, and really getting practical with all of that, giving it all a good look that day.
Yeah, that
Questioning.
earthy groundedness, right? That
Yeah.
that we really need to our messages even you might even notice
True.
our communication more in alignment with that healthy, grounded,
Mhm.
rather than the flowery, etheric. We're going to be more
We're
practical.
practical in our language. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And to answer your Christine question, to answer your question, Christine,
There we go.
uh, September 3rd is Venus direct. The 4th is Jupiter retrograde. And the Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun is on the 6th. And then on the 8th, which is that Friday, the sun comes into a trine with Jupiter. So that's some really, I mean, that to me is a banner, feel good,
Oh,
optimistic
yeah.
day, right?
That's red letter day. Yay. No, not red
Green
letter.
green letter day, green
That's
number day.
green letter day for astrology. Red letter is not good.
No, Wednesday with, Mercury conjunct the sun, they put that as a red, number, like, on
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
calendars that I use, you get the days that are colored in, and I'm not sure if that's because of a personal thing that's going on for me that day, it doesn't maybe I don't know. It just seems odd to put that
Yeah.
conjunction
I don't think that's
as a
okay.
red. I see it as good, I see it as positive.
Yeah.
Maybe also because I'm in a frame of mind right now that is into being healthy and establishing healthy routines and so forth. Maybe for those people who are going kicking and screaming in that direction, it could feel a little more difficult. But the whole messaging for this next period of time with Mercury and the Sun is going to be based on what is healthy, what is practical, what's ordered and organized and service oriented, helpful,
Yeah.
right? Diligent in helping others.
And
Now, as we said, we
whoops.
wanted to look at the shadows.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you going to say something else about that day?
I was going to, well, not about that day, but something also to remember. And I'm saying this through the lens of a true Virgo myself, like watching for victimhood and martyrdom. Those two words, I know that it plays out in me. I know that it does. It does, and I've been called out on it, and that's okay. Be aware. Where are you acting the victim? Where are you acting the martyr? and how can you clean that up? I think that's a good piece of work to do. I know I work at it for myself. I do. It's a big part of what can show up in my shadow work. So just
I
sharing that
love it.
for people. Really, it's something to be mindful about.
Well, it's important because the shadow work that you do is benefiting not just you, but everybody around you. It's
Absolutely.
benefiting you in the work that you do with others. So it has implications that are far reaching. And as we were moving into this first full week, anyway, of September, we're entering a 3-month period where the inner planets, Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, so those guys, are going to be moving through the gates in the spleen center of your human design that are where fear and paralysis lives. So, in the shadow of these energies, like we can talk about healthy routines and all of this, all we want, but what's underneath the unhealth, right?
Mhm.
What's the cause of your overeating, of your addictions, or of your not taking care of yourself? What is that? Right?
Mhm.
That's the part that we are going to be looking at in the shadows. And so as I'm looking at August. No wonder I'm not finding what I'm looking for.
Page 112.
Yeah. So we end up being in Mars first enters into the gate 18, which is a gate of perfectionism. So Virgoan, right?
Oh
Even
boy.
though this isn't Virgo in human design. This is really much more Libran territory, but it's a perfectionism. And 1 week after the other, he's in that mode. And then Venus will enter into that, and Mercury will enter into that. The sun will enter into it at the end of September. So we're on a long term potential to explore, excavate, bring up our shadowy stuff, our fears, the places where we are being a victim or a martyr to the light so it can be healed.
Mm,
That's the whole purpose. It's not to
that's the
keep
whole
us
purpose.
poisoned or, feeling bad about ourselves. Um, but a lot of times when those energies of the spleen get triggered by planets, and this is what will be happening, right? From September all the way through November, maybe even into the first week of December, one at a time, these planets, sometimes in more than one at a time, triggering these things to bring it up for us,
Mhm.
to help us to heal it.
Here, look at
Um,
this. Fix it.
Yeah, right here it is, right? Your fear of being inadequate, not being good enough, of the future, of fear of the past, a fear of failing, failure. That's a big one.
Mhm.
And then when we're caught up in that fear, that's when we choose things that create more of the victimy
Mhm.
feel or of that martyrdom. So
I
it's
said this to a client yesterday. The fear has been really, really coming up. And I said to her, stop feeding the beast. When you have this beast called fear showing up in your life and you talk about it and you talk about it and you talk about everything that is can happen wrong, you're feeding the beast. The more that you talk that story up, the bigger it grows in your mind. The idea is to look at the fear and discover if it's real. Is it a true story?
right. Is it is it real? Is it real?
Is it a
Probably
true
not.
story? What you're projecting, like that point of view is not actually the truth. There are many potentials out there. So anyway, don't feed the
Yeah.
beast. Bring it up, see it, look at it, examine it, but you can't feed it.
Yes. The antidote to all of that is really to keep an open, curious mind,
Yep.
see yourself through other people's eyes and
Yes.
through the eyes of love, really.
Yeah.
If we want to break it down, see yourself through love,
Yep.
not through fear,
Yep.
right? It's always a choice. Joan Durchie says, I'm getting married on the 13th. I hope it's a good day for me. Congratulations to you, Joan. I feel like this has been a long time coming and I'm excited for you. On the 13th, it just so happens the moon is also in Virgo.
Yep.
So we'll have this the sun will be in Virgo, Mercury will be in Virgo, and of course the moon will be opposite of Saturn that day and conjunct Mercury. As far there's no indication there of really, there's longevity perhaps there because of the
Saturn.
Saturn. But to look at your own personal chart would make more sense because how is all that playing out in your particular chart? Um, it to me, you know, it seems like a practical thing to do to make the agreement. We talked about this the other day because the sun right now and the earth and this full moon are sitting in a place in our human design about the agreements that we've made, the contracts that we are engaged in, and the renegotiation of said contracts, right? We're not a victim, if you will, of the agreements that we've made. We can always renegotiate and change. So it seems like that would be a good day to think about, what is it that you are truly desirous of here in this relationship? And Joan is a Taurus, I believe, May 4th. I only remember her birthday because it's the same day as my grandma or my granddaughter's. And so, Taurus, is this practical? Yes,
Right.
maybe in some respects it is. What I don't see from, the chart is where Venus is, where Mars is for you personally. I know Venus is in Leo, but where is that in your chart? I can't remember what your rising is. So we could certainly look at that sometime soon if you'd like to do that. All right, so that's the first week of September.
Woohoo! That was a doozy.
Yeah, but after that, it gets a little easier, I think,
Yeah, let me see. So I have she's talking about September 13th, and I'm like, I don't have anything till the moon on the 14th.
right? Yeah, I wonder if you could maybe move the wedding, Joan, to the 14th so you have new moon energy. But
Mm.
I hesitate to say to put that to that's kind of a projection of everything new at the new moon, but I don't know what your own chart is in terms of the moon and so forth.
And that moon
Um,
is, oh yeah, it's later in the day on the 14th. Okay.
yeah, 6:40 p.m. for those of you on the East Coast. That means it'll be 3:40 for us, Joan, here on the West Coast. Um, I just say here's how I kind of look at these things philosophically. Like you've chosen this day.
Mm,
The 13th is always a very feminine number. To me,
mm,
that sounds like a good point. There must have been some call from the soul for you to have chosen this
right.
date, right? So even if looking at the astrology, someone might go, well, wait another day and do it at the new moon. That undermines even your own intuition and your own inclination that this was the day that you wanted to get married. So I would never do that, right? Things
I
happen when,
support that. I love what you're saying right there for all the people who like, let's do it on exactly like your intuition has something to say about all of this. I have a son who called us to um, Charleston, South Carolina on a Wednesday because his wife to be knew that that was the right day. And we had a month notice, but
yeah,
she knew it was going to be that number that day. And I'm like, okay, you got to honor that. I'm like, let's do it Friday so I can travel better. She's like, no.
right? Convenience for
Yeah,
you would take away from the authenticity that she felt around that particular day.
exactly. Run with your
So,
wedding date that you picked of September 13th, Friday
yes.
the 13th. I get that. For a lot of people, that's a very
Well,
fortunate.
it's not Friday, it's Wednesday.
Oh, it's a
But
Wednesday.
the
Oh,
Yeah,
is
but the 13th itself, I think, is just a lucky
yeah,
number
feminine
for
number.
that kind of, yeah, it's divinely feminine, and why not?
Do it.
Do it. Just do it because you've already planned it apparently. So, of
Yeah,
course you hope it's a good day for you, but I guess you could make it a good day for you.
count on it, right.
Yeah, exactly. Um, that new moon, the 14th,
Yeah,
it's interesting because now, because of having a blue moon at the end of August, the energies flip so that now what comes first in the month is a new moon,
yep,
right? In August, it was full moon, new moon, full moon. Now we have new moon, full moon, and it comes later in the month. So we're shifting the energies of the new moon till the middle of the month, which really isn't different, but is just notable because there's no full moon preceding it that's in the same month. And that new moon to me seemed pretty decent. Not It wasn't one that made me go,
yeah,
cringe.
no,
There's a sort of grand trine energy, earth trine energy still a part of that. We've been dealing with the grand earth trine now for a while. It has been very good for us in terms of getting things planted, getting things organized, that type of thing. And yeah, that moon has Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter also, and the sun, moon, and Mercury all in Earth,
But so many of them retrograde.
right?
So many of them retrograde. Are any of them not retrograde? Let's see.
Well,
Venus.
Mercury is still retrograde.
Yep.
Uranus is retrograde. Jupiter is retrograde. Pluto is retrograde. So they are all
Wow.
of the ones that retrograde. They're all retrograde,
Yep.
and they, interestingly enough, point to. There's a kite here. Let me
Oh,
see
yes.
if I can draw it in. That points to Neptune. And interesting because Neptune is not earthy. It is not anything to do with practical, organized. He holds
Right.
the energy of the opposite of all of that.
Yep.
And here's that kite
Yep. Yep.
that points, this point up here
Mhm.
is where Neptune is.
Yep.
And it's the point of the kite where we find success.
Mm.
So if you have a kite, it's made up of all good aspects, by the way. There is an opposition between, yeah, well, we won't go there yet. Um, But the energy of a kite really is pointing us, the point points up,
Mm.
right? Up, and it's pointing up to Neptune. So the the new, if you will, is grounded in the practical earth energies, but also pointing up to heaven, heavenward, or
And
to the divine,
to me,
spiritual.
to like for our visualization and our sense of, creating creativity, I think it's beautiful.
I know it's going to be a great new moon. The moon and the sun themselves are in the conjunction in Virgo.
Mhm.
So there's the continuation of a theme that we've already been talking about, the healthy routines, the getting into habits, detoxifying.
Mm.
Oh, that's another thing I always think about
Oh,
with the energy across Virgo and Pisces
yeah.
is it is a great time to do detoxes or to look at it was interesting that my doctor yesterday pointed out that sugar should be looked at as a poison,
Oh, yeah,
right? A
for
need
sure.
to be detoxified from your body.
Yep.
And that energy is so profound across Virgo and Pisces. The need to be able to detox your body, your emotions, your mind, your mental, as well as the physical. Or I mean, as your spiritual.
I
So
didn't
it's a
know that.
call for us to kind of clean it all up.
That's great to know. I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pisces, especially because it rules the lymphatic system in the body, is very important for us to take a look at what is it that we are putting in our bodies that doesn't serve our higher self, right? Doesn't serve our health, doesn't serve our welfare.
Mm.
And an emotional detox, as Sharon is pulling up, is also important because here's the thing about the whole evolution on the planet right now is that we are evolving to become more emotionally mature,
Yes.
emotionally intelligent. And
Yes.
we've spent a lot of time. Some people are empaths. They're taking in all of this emotion and then they hold on to it
Yes.
and it gets stuck in them. Or they think it's their emotion and it's not. It's the emotion they're taking in. Others are broadcasting emotion. So that can put us in a position of being reactive instead of responding
Mhm.
with some kind of an emotional um, wisdom, right? Instead, we just knee jerk, and do things that can be more hurtful. So, yes, emotional detox might include taking a look at all of your feelings. What are you feeling? Are they your feelings? Are you reacting to those emotions rather than responding with a clear choice about what it is that you want to do? In human design, sometimes we say that the emotional energy calibrates us to
Mm.
our heart.
Mm.
Meaning, if you're experiencing low emotions or you're upset about something, it is typically a call to move more towards your heart,
Mm.
more towards your center, more towards your soul.
Mhm.
And that somehow you've wandered. We all wander away from the clear plan of the soul. But as well, we do go through regular cycles of emotional inertness where we're inside, right? And we're we're kind of quiet. We don't really know what we're feeling, perhaps, or, maybe we're feeling slow, low, feeling depressed, not depressed, feeling it.
Mhm.
And then that cycle changes to be more outwardly focused. So emotional energy is also much like the waves on the ocean, right? They're high and they break. And then they build, they get high and then they break.
Mhm.
So that is our emotional energy. So an emotional detox, yeah, go for it. Look at all those things that you're feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The shadow that week, of the 11th through the 17th, well, we haven't really finished that week. We still have Mercury going direct that week, was
Oh,
really about, uh, I remember when I wrote this, I was thinking about the movie The Matrix and how, when Neo wants to learn something or needs to learn something, he just gets in his little chair and they plug him in and boom, he knows jujitsu or whatever it is, right?
LEPs. Yep.
Yeah, downloads, right? They're downloads. And he can eh, when I'm thinking about that, he's getting that from the outside, but what it's really doing is stimulating everything that he knows to be true from the inside, right? So that this week, the second week of September is really about accessing the wisdom within.
Mhm.
Like I know that sugar is not my friend. There's, like, no equivocating with it, right? It's just a known fact. So why am I continuing to do things that I know are not good for me? So it's an internal focus on, okay, where's my wisdom in this, right? And following our inner wisdom. We don't have to look outside for it. It's inside. It's inside. And the shadow of this week is inadequacy, which means that it kind of makes us want to look outside
Yeah,
for validation, for,
right.
learning more and more and more as an excuse not to do what we really want to do. So it's an interesting week.
Yeah. Interesting week. Love those gifts and shadows. It's really the part that I focus on week to week when I'm looking at the almanac, honestly.
Well, I really should do that myself because as I look at him, I'm like, of course, I've already been feeling these things. So funny. And then Mercury turns direct on the 15th
Yep.
of Friday, the same day the sun trines Uranus.
Mhm.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I'll look for some inspiration that day, or some
Yeah, that was the word I was just thinking about in my head. Inspiration. What might we be inspired to say, to
yeah,
do,
yeah.
to embrace? That is a great day. Now, of course, Mercury turning direct also means he's going back through the territory he's already crossed through.
Mhm.
So, if you've had issues with Mercury retrograde themes, communication, your appliances,
Technology.
technical, all of that, those are the times when things will start to come together again in a better way. um, Mercury direct, when planets turn, they don't just suddenly start going fast.
Right.
They take their time.
Yep.
In fact, they can kind of sit just still. There is a stillness before they actually start the move. So there is space between retrograde and direct. That is just stillness.
Mm.
And that's a part that we'll also see on the 15th, where hmm, there's a space of nothing, a nothing space as it relates to the mind and action that we take, based on thinking and
Look
what have
forward
you.
to that one.
Yeah, and it's in that space of stillness, Tam, where inspiration can come and play.
Well, you can't hear the inspiration if your mind is so busy chattering. So, yeah, the silence is where the creativity and the inspiration arrives. Absolutely.
Absolutely perfect. And then the next day, Venus is square Jupiter, one of the few squares that we ever experience that really is highly positive.
Okay.
And it is, to me, a great call for us to really get clear about what is good in our lives and
Mm,
to find appreciation and love for those things, to focus on the good, not on the challenges. We do have a tendency sometimes to really get kind of hyper focused on what's not working.
yeah.
And, whatever you focus on gets bigger, persists.
Don't feed the beast. Don't feed the
Don't
beast.
feed the dragon, the beast. Maybe take a look at all of the things that you appreciate in
Mhm.
life, right? Or that you have an appreciation for. Um, that particular week, the sun is in the gate 6.
Okay.
I'm always a little leery of that week. The sun is in the gate 6, the Earth is at the gate 36, which means the Earth is also in a conjunction with Neptune, who is also at that gate. It can be a gate or a combination of energies that are very restless,
Mm,
um, and somewhat intense. For some people, it really depends on your own particular chart.
mhm,
But it's also a search for connection, for intimacy, to really
mm.
explore the boundaries of emotional connection.
Oh,
Both of those energies sit on the solar plexus or the emotional center of your human design.
okay.
So, exploring, is inspiration to do something really a distraction away from something you've yet to complete?
Mm,
Or is this the answer, the inspiration, the answer to the restlessness that you've been feeling? It
mm.
can be an interesting week, not bad, but
So
intense.
here's a question relative to that. So I'm looking at the 19th, the sun in Virgo, opposite Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So that is sort of exactly what you're talking about to some degree. The gates are sort of
They're
match the
backing it up. They're
yeah,
backing it up.
up. Okay. Wow, that's really, really fascinating. So I'm looking at like the 19th as a day where sort of the head and the heart compete. Yeah.
Yeah, the head and the heart, or our intuition versus our ego.
Thing, isn't it?
Our
Isn't that
yeah, it's all in the play of words, I suppose, but
yeah,
the sun has a tendency to really shine a bright light wherever it goes, and now it's shining a bright light on all things Neptunian.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
the glitz and the glamour, the lipstick on the pig. A pig is still a pig even if you put lipstick on it.
Absolutely.
And, being able to see things for what they truly are and not what we hoped they are.
Illusion, Neptune being
Mhm.
the illusion of what we hope they might be, right?
Yep, exactly. But
Okay.
Neptune also reminding us about unconditional love,
Unconditional love, yes.
bringing it to the spirit, bringing it to the higher self. It's a
Mm,
pretty interesting day, I think. The
okay.
moon will be in Scorpio that day, so that also makes it
Oh,
emotional.
wow.
Water, Neptune in Pisces, the sun in Virgo. It should be an interesting time for us. Maybe, that week, I think maybe people will be really having aha moments, um, dreams, maybe that are more vivid. Could
Wow.
be a really interesting
I
time.
gotta tell you, I'm looking at your gift and shadow for that week, and you said a difficult week as conflict, turbulence, and unease seem to be easily triggered. Like those are big words.
Yeah. And
Wow.
that's because the sun at gate 6 is opposing the gate 36, which is where
Yes.
this restlessness. Yeah. It's an interesting week to be sure, but one that we can come down to it, right? How do we get out of that shadow? Well, we explore the internal dynamics. What's really going on? Why am I feeling this unease? What is that related to? And follow your intuition, your gut instinct, if you will, your authority, if to speak it in human design speak. Um, and make the decisions that are right for you, not based on boredom. The tendency that week is to want to leap into or
Wow.
out of things, like without really considering the ramifications.
That's a problem for me right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like out of the frying pan but into the fire.
Sure.
So
Oh.
can be difficult. It's so calm, cool,
Yeah.
deliberation before you choose to do anything,
Mm.
right? That is our friend. And I didn't do this, and I usually do this. I didn't make up a chart for the autumnal equinox,
Oh,
um, because that is a season, right? The beginning of a season. I'll probably
yes.
do that in another show, everybody who listens to me. Um, so the autumnal equinox, always in human design, the equinoxes bring in another way for us to love,
Mm.
right? To be more loving. So that week we see the earth at the gate 25 is really engendering the love of spirit, while the sun will be at the gate 46 being the embodiment of that spirit.
Oh,
And all of that love that entails it through that connection of spirit and human. So embodying that. So the autumn equinox, all the equinoxes and or both equinoxes and the solstices, they're always about love. And how do we want to express more and more of that love?
How did we get to that? I've never heard that before.
Um, I mean, I guess because I don't talk about it so much in the context of what you and I do here, but
Hmm,
it's a theme that I talk about all the time in my regular broadcasts or when I'm doing readings for people and so forth,
blog
because that,
post about that?
pardon me?
Do you have a blog post about that?
Probably not.
Do you have a video just about that topic?
I'd have to go look for that. Yeah, I probably because if you go back to summer when we entered into the summer solstice, I would have chatted about that same thing because there are four main gates of love. There's the love of the body or being in the physical world, being the embodiment,
Okay.
right, of spirit, which is the love of spirit, the gate 25, which is, bringing that human into or bringing that spirit into the human. Then there's the gate 15, which is the gate of the love of humanity, compassion and empathy and all of that. And then gate 10, which is the gate of self love. So there's different iterations of those four gates
Mhm.
on every season. And as we shift then into that season, we have an opportunity to bring more and more of that love of the body, love of being in the physical, being spirit embodied energy in at fall. In the winter, we get to bring more of the love of humanity into self love and so on through the year.
I'm
Every season brings that.
fascinated by that. I'm absolutely fascinated. Sometime we'll have to just talk about that.
Yeah, we could do that. It's fascinating to me because for now, this time of year, the autumnal equinox is always followed by the next 6 or 7 weeks of the sun transiting through the gates of the spleen, which is where we're looking at where we're paralyzed by fear,
Wow.
what fear's impact is on us. And if we can remember that we're divine in the physical body, which is what the week prior to that brought us to, then we can move through those fears in a different way, in an empowered way,
Hmm.
right? We can go, oh, yeah, this is what's the highest divine way that I could deal with this energy.
Hmm.
And it's not by shutting myself down or shutting myself off or, you know, it's got to be different than that. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
All right. In the last 5 minutes here, the last week of Septiembre. Uh,
Timbre. Let's see. I have Mercury in Virgo trine, Jupiter retrograde in Taurus. That I have that as the 25th.
I do too. The 25th, that's a great day.
A lot of that Mercury Jupiter stuff in Virgo and Taurus going on. So I think September is a really great month for looking at the self worth topic, the self
Yep.
love and self worth, as well as the personal and global economy. I
Yep.
think it's going to be very very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting. And trines, are the smooth flow of these energies. So the smooth flow of Virgo and Taurus energy, building something of lasting value, we could say,
Building
right?
something of lasting value. Yeah.
Mhm.
You're
Um, building from a place of value,
mhm.
of inner self-worth and value. So we could make phrases that bring all of these things together, and the list could be quite long, but that is pretty primarily what's going on there. The
Yeah.
moon that day is actually in Aquarius, so maybe seeing things differently,
Oh,
outside the norm,
yes.
right, being different.
Yeah. Or some innovation that will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, something that triggers our done that years ago. The 29th is the full moon,
Yes.
and also Venus in a square to Uranus that day. That could be some fireworks in our relationship, some, thunderstorm spirits hanging out there in our world. The moon that day in Aries, so it could be a little more conflictive. Um, the full moon that day though is that's the new moon. Full moon was the other one I drew on. Is kind of my sense when I looked at it was that it's all over the map.
Mm,
So when I see all over the map, to me, that means there's a lot of different things that a lot of different people are likely working on. I didn't see any particular one theme that jumped out at me, other than the fact that the moon and the sun are across Libra and Aries.
yep.
And that is the preparation for those coming Aries Libra eclipses.
Yes.
So we might have to dig into that one a little bit deeper in a different broadcast because I think there's this crux of planning
Mm,
that's going on. And remember, the whole North Node in Aries now is really about our pulling in our own identity, doing what's good for us as individuals,
yep,
and ultimately letting go of people pleasing behaviors or just saying and doing things that are designed to make other people happy that have no real truth to it or
yep.
meaning for you.
Mhm.
So, interesting day, I think, to have the full moon, which is also we're releasing, right? What can I let go of
Yeah.
that isn't serving me, that isn't authentic to me
This
before
is-
I get to October's
I'll
eclipses?
let me say this quickly before we go. I know we have to go. I looked at this moon on the 29th and I said, we're halfway through the astrological year, correct?
Yeah.
And that's how I looked at it because I kept all of my journal notes front and center from the new moon in March. It was a new moon in Aries in late March. And I kept that and I looked at this. I'm like, oh, I'm halfway there. How am I doing with that goal? Because it was my new, it's just something to remember. It's another way to look at it that's, much higher level than what you're talking about now, but just something for other people to consider. What were you looking at doing in late March under the new moon in Aries?
Oh, good idea. Good way to look at that. That now can either come to completion or get inserted into your life
Yeah.
with these eclipses coming up. Woo hoo hoo. Good stuff. Now, I have a glaring error that I've just thought about, and that is we didn't tell people where they could go to buy the almanac for 2024.
This is my
So,
surprise face.
ooh. Where do they go?
This is really easy. It's the energyalmanac.com. That will bring you to one page where you can select the bundle, which is $75. You get a workshop and the book and free media mail shipping, or you can go to, you can also just choose the book only. Both of those have special codes associated with them, but you will see the code named right on the pages. So you just enter that code at checkout. That's going to give you the $5 off your shipping. Okay.
Cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
So am I. Woo.
Time to start on the next one.
Oh boy.
I don't even want to think about that.
Not yet.
Too much going on right now.
Yep.
Anyway, Tam, thank you so much for joining me today. And interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Certainly not just astrological, but
Yeah.
good stuff. Take care, everybody. And thank you so much for joining us. Tam and I will be together again probably on the 27th of September, right?
Beautiful.
Because that'll be before October.
Hmm.
So a little less than a month away.
Love it.
Or a month exact. No, a little less than a month.
A little less than a month.
We'll see you then.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye.